Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get this kicked off. Welcome to our June meeting for the Central Illinois CPCU Society. As we have up on the screen, we're now getting kicked off. We do have the antitrust statement, a lot of legalese, but all super important. So we'll give you a few moments to read the antitrust. Assuming there's no questions, but if there are, reach out to one of your table mates and they'd be more than happy to help you with any questions you might have. Moving on to the next slide, we're talking about our upcoming chapter events. All super fun, also important. June 27th is a Good Works event, Adopt a Highway. It's basically going out and helping to beautify a stretch of, I believe it's usually Towanda Barnes or Towanda Parkway. August 7th is a fun event, the annual golf outing. Registration for that is now open. August 15th is another edition of Good Works with Adopt a Highway. And we'll be back for the meetings starting in September with a lunch and learn about the West of Bloomington Revitalization Project. A lot of words. Our speaker today is William McKenzie, and he is the founder of McKenzie PLLC, a nationally recognized trial attorney and a speaker who trains companies, claims professionals, and legal teams on negotiation strategy, influence, and high-stakes decision-making. Drawing from his many years of experience in the courtroom defending Fortune 100 companies, leadership experience building a fast-growing law firm, and a deep interest in psychology and human behavior, William teaches practical frameworks that help professionals move beyond conflict and create better outcomes. Today's presentation is on stop arguing and start negotiating, tactics for getting results, and we'll give you William. Welcome. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that, Robin. Hey, we're going to have fun today, and what I'm going to share with you is you can apply it in every area of your life. It's going to make you a better spouse, better parent, whatever you want to do. I think all of life is negotiations, and I tell my kids, I was like, you don't get what you deserve in life, you get what you negotiate. And if you want to take notes mentally, my definition of negotiation is communication with a purpose. So we know where we want to go, we just have to create the path to get there. And I'm going to show you this talk today is going to be two parts. The first part is caught, the second part is taught. So I'm going to kind of make my case. I'm a trial attorney, so I'm going to kind of be persuasive in tone this first half, because I want to sell it to you. Then after I kind of get you on the hook to say, yeah, that makes sense, I'm going to try to teach you how to do it. That makes sense, okay? So let me start off with a dramatic example to kind of get your attention. And this is what police call a jumper. Let's call him Larry. He's thinking about ending his life today. He's on the edge of a building. And so this negotiator, look at him. He's like an old neighbor leaned on the fence talking to this guy. Now, he could come at him with logic and truth if he wants to. He could say, hey, Larry, you're off your medication. Larry, you're going to make a huge mess if you jump off the building right now. Larry, what you're doing right now is illegal. All that's true. It's just not helpful. So instead, a good negotiator, because the number one rule in negotiations, here's a spoiler alert, keep the other side talking. That's what you want to do. So a good negotiator is just going to ask questions to Larry to get him to emotionally unload. Hey, Larry, can you help me understand what's going on here? Hey, Larry, notice my voice, soft. Hey, Larry, can you, because he's in fight or flight. We're trying to get his limbic system down a little bit, right, so he can think. And then you say, okay, Larry, I hear what you're saying. Could you just swing one of those legs over? I'm getting nervous right now. I'm scared you're going to fall, man. I want to keep talking to you. Can you just swing one of those legs over and just face me for a second? And so that's how you start moving people. It's not, so logic and emotion are always in tension with one another. They're always present. You have to live with two things being true at the same time, okay? So this is the first principle I want to unpack about logic and emotion. You've heard of, the diminishing returns of things. That's how God set up life, where the third piece of pizza is not as good as the first one. The more you get of this world, the less satisfying it becomes. It's just a law. So the same thing with arguing. At first, you need to be able to express yourself, right? But psychologists call it being flooded. If your heart rate's reaches over 96 beats per minute, you have less than a 3% chance of resolving the conflict, which means all those times you spent yelling at your spouse at 1 a.m. trying to work something out in the kitchen for young married people, you have less than a 4% chance of working that out. You need to go to bed. Hey, I love you. Let's talk about this in the morning, after we're calm. I don't want to say the hurtful things to make the problem worse, right? So mature people understand that, but you have to learn that lesson. We also need to apply that to our negotiations, whether we're doing this for work or for claims. I want to give you the word picture here with the couple arguing. Once the guy starts kind of crossing his arms, negotiations are dead on arrival. That body language is saying, I'm done. Same thing if you're correcting your 4-year-old daughter or granddaughter. The moment the tears well up, negotiations are over with. She's in fight or flight. She's worried about getting a spanking or grandmama being mad at her, whatever. You're not reaching her heart at that. If you want to reach her heart, you do it in non-conflict time on the way to Chick-fil-A. Hey, Sarah, when you talked like that to me earlier, that hurts our relationship because that dishonored me. And I want us to have a good relationship. Can I get a yes, sir? See, that's how you reach the heart. You have to keep. So today, I want you to remember, we want to keep our negotiations on the left side of that X, below 96 beats per minute. We do that with tone. We do that with presence. We do that even with cadence. We slow it down. We listen. We let them emotionally unload. For those of you who do litigation, you've seen a lot of times cases will settle after the plaintiff gives their deposition or after they have their day in court. They want to feel understood. If you don't let someone feel understood, they're going to spend all their time getting louder, trying to get you to understand them. So you want to close that loop by saying, hey, here's something I say a lot. I hear you. I'll text that, I hear you. Sometimes that's all people need. If you want to go a step further, I say, I'd feel the same way if I were you. Because you would, if you were raised like them and felt like them. So that's how you kind of get past this first roadblock. Stay on the left side of the X. The second thing I want to talk to you about today is EQ versus IQ. You've heard of IQ, intelligent quotient. You're born with that. You really can't do much to improve it. Like my son took the ACT several times to improve 1 point. I'm like, love the effort, son. But EQ can be developed and improved on, right? So we want to, that's emotional quotient. They say IQ can get you to be CEO of a company, but EQ will keep you there. Because if people don't feel like you care about them, they'll undermine you. So good leaders develop their EQ. So let me give you an example of this. Why there's a whole field study of behavioral economics. I kind of geek out on that stuff. I love it because it's how people act when money's involved. They don't act logically and linearly when money's involved. They act irrationally. And Dan Ariely is kind of the godfather of this. He kind of said, he wrote this book that like predictably irrational. Here's my favorite example from that book. There was this problem this daycare was having with the parents picking up their kids late. So they implemented a $25 fine every time you're late to pick up your kids. If you're a minute late, $25. Do y'all think the problem got worse or better? Worse. Got worse. That's right, Spencer. Because when you introduce money into the situation, now they're thinking, well, this is just a transaction, right? Well, by God, I'll pick up a pizza and have dinner knocked out in the minivan on the way home before I pick them up if I'm paying for it, So same thing if you invited me to dinner for Thanksgiving. It'd be nice if Jacob invited me. It'd be intimate. I'm there with your family. I'm not going to say, hey, can I Venmo you $100 now? It cheapens it, right? Because those are two different ways we're operating on. Those are two different planes to operate on. So here's the takeaway, is that emotional support or social norms are oftentimes more influential than money. A lot of times, let me say it differently. We throw money at things when we could just slow down a little bit, have some empathy, and reach a human, and you get better deals, So what the owner of the daycare should have done is should have emailed the parents, hey, the honor of my life is serving your kids. I feel like this is my calling, but I need to keep the best talent in town here working with me. Can you help me do that by picking up your kids on time so they can get home to their own families? ? See the difference? You're appealing to their nature, to social norms, to the goodwill instead of just monetary. Okay, here's the second point. You got to show deference. Now, this is hard to do when you're already so good at what you do. I'm already so good at what I do, I feel like, that I'm cutting people off a sentence in. I know what you're going to say, and I already know the answer, right? Aren't you that way? And it's hard because we have to slow down a little bit, show deference out of humility, because, again, this allows them to unload emotionally. So why this is hard, the more successful you become in life, the harder this is to do. There's two things that happen. I've studied this. When I turned about 40, a lot of my friends started making big mistakes. They started cheating on their wives and losing money on Bitcoin. I'm like, why are we getting dumber, guys? Like, what's going on? So we started having a meeting in my office every Monday. We studied different books. This is my favorite one. This kind of explained the phenomenon that they were dealing with, and something I wanted to avoid myself, is that when you start winning in life, you get successful. Obviously, you're surrounded by yes people, but your testosterone goes up, and your brain mapping changes. Okay, so those are two dangerous things if you're a 40-year-old male, right? That's why you see this happens in people get elected to politics. They have lots of that. Or Elon Musk, you can't tell the guy no. I mean, he'll go colonize Mars, but he's got like 14 kids with different little boo things of his, right? So, and it's just a reality. So the idea is that if we let our brain mapping change without getting some kind of checks and balance system, we'll go off the rails. I will. Everyone else will too. The researchers in this book, they even like took the blood samples of European soccer fans after a match. Now these were the fans, not the team. The winning fans had much higher testosterone, women too, than the losing fans. So you have a biological change the more successful you become, which makes it hard to show deference. So this is my appeal to you. Okay, let me take it home, Jacob. Since you invited me, I got a little test here. Now, if I got a $50 Amazon gift card, my Aunt Bonnie gave it to me for Christmas. She knows that I'm too lazy to go redeem these things. So, all right, if you get to call a coin flip, heads or tails, okay? You got to call it in the air, and if you win, you get it. If you don't, you get it, okay? So either way, I'm not leaving with this, okay? Okay. Do you want me to flip it, or do you want to flip it?
You can flip it.
Okay. He's gonna let me flip it. Okay. Here we go. It's heads, tails, and heads. Okay. Tails and heads. Okay. Call it.
Tails.
It is. Is that heads? Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So here's the reality of this. Here's what you did right. You said you flip it. I don't care who flips it. He knows mathematically how this thing ends up. Doesn't matter who flips it. So what happens is, casinos know this. They call it the gambler's fallacy. It's not a fallacy to go to the casino. You and I know the house always wins. We already know that the deck is stacked against us. That's not the fallacy. The fallacy is that you put too many chips on the table when you're the one rolling the dice. Okay? So what Jacob had good instincts, he's like, it doesn't matter who flips it. But here's the opposite of that. When you think you know so much, when you're not showing deference, that's when you get hammered at trial by the jury. Where did this $30 million verdict came from? Well, you've been in an echo chamber for 3 weeks talking about this case. You didn't get objective feedback. Your brain mapping changed. You think you can't lose. So it's not a fallacy to roll the dice. It's just a fallacy to have too many chips on the table. And that's why we show deference. That make sense? Okay. Here's a good lesson. I love this one. I'm just going to throw this in here. My granddad taught me this. He had a ranch in Colorado, and I'd be out in the summers working with him, and he's like, one time this guy kind of messed him over, and the guy rode off. I was like, why did you let him get away with that? He said, William, you always preserve another man's pride. Sun Tzu said it this way: you provide a golden bridge for your enemy to retreat on. Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. So the idea is, if you want to get the goodwill of people, you don't always have to catch them and pin them down and show them they were wrong. Sometimes you just let the test for me is let them have the last word. That's what it boils down to me. Let them have, even if they're wrong, why can't they just be wrong? Why do I have to correct everybody? So even when parenting, my son, who's going to college in the fall, when he was a little boy, he's like me, he's kind of strong-willed. He would be touching this heater one time in the summer, and I was scared. It wasn't hot then, but I was scared to be hot the next time. So anytime you overreact, or I exercise a lot of control, it's always rooted in fear. So things you're scared of, you tend to overprotect and you try to control. And that's just a principle too. With him, I came in too hot, right? So you get your hand off that right now. He's like, I'll take the spanking. I don't like the way this redneck's talking to me right now. You know, whatever. I've learned with him, I'm like, hey, Henry, you're a wise person. That could be hot the next time you touch it. I know you're going to do the right thing. And I just provide that golden bridge to him to retreat, and I walk away. Then he gets to decide when to take his hand off. If he wants to be wrong, he can be wrong, but it's not up to me to control it. That alone, by showing deference that way, by not cutting people to the bone in negotiations, by not getting the last word, or just because I'm a good lawyer and cross-examining and making them feel stupid, I don't have to do that, right? I can just let their dumb words hang in the room. Everybody else knows it's dumb. I don't have to go in and pin them down, right? So that's a great way to be a better negotiator. Here's principle 3, is prime people before giving them your message. Who likes to marinate their steak before you cook it? I know I do. The acid and the oil, the Worcestershire sauce and the olive oil, it breaks down the meat before you ever touch it and put it on the grill, right? the state starts negotiating against itself before you have to do anything. Priming people is the same way. I prime people with good news and with bad news. So let's say I'm going to settle a case for you. You give me $100,000 in authority. Well, I don't just go call the plaintiff's lawyer and say, hey, let's have a mediation, or hey, good news. I prime him, I text him or her, and I say, got some bad news. My client's being ridiculous. Call me and see if we can work something out. When they get that text message from me, they think bad news. They're thinking, man, I already have $30,000 in expenses in this case. William McKenzie's about to lowball me. I swear to God, the lowest I'm going is 75. They're priming themselves, right? They're already negotiating and marinating before they ever call me because I've given them that bad news. My wife, she knows how to work me. William, something's terrible happened. I'm like, what's the matter? Oh, I bumped my car in the trash can. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thinking somebody's dead. I'm thinking, thank God. Okay, we can handle that. So I also prime people that way, the way my wife does me. There was my nephew had a fraternity brother that he was in hot water with his parents, right? He made terrible grades. His parents were paying for his college. So my nephew says, call my uncle. He's kind of a fixer. He can tell you what to do. So this kid calls me. I say, well, first of all, I was like, it's dumb for your parents to pay to educate a fool. And right now, you need to go to your dad with a plan of how you're going to take summer school, get a job, and pay for summer school yourself. Because I would advise your dad not to pay for you anymore if you're going to sit here and flag these grades. I said, so that's your plan, but before you talk to him about it, you need to prime him. He said, what's that? I said, let me tell you. It was Easter. He was getting ready to go home for Easter. I said, text your dad that you've got some really bad news and you want to meet with him at his office on Thursday when you come back in town. And he's going to ask you what it's about. Say, I just want to talk to you about it in person. Don't tell him. I said, by the time you get there, he's going to think you got a girl pregnant or you're selling pictures of your feet on OnlyFans. And a D in economics, he's going to be like, praise God, we can work with this, So that's why priming's so important. Don't eat that tough piece of meat. Marinate it first. Okay. College researchers, they even asked these college kids, they said, how happy are you? And then they asked them, how often are you dating? The answer is about like you thought, but here's what's interesting. When they flipped the two questions, they asked the dating question first. The correlation in happiness went way down because now they're viewing their happiness through the lens of, am I dating enough? And no one feels like they're dating enough, right? So that's how you prime people, and it changes perception. I could give you a million examples of how we do this as lawyers, but that would bore you. Okay, here's principle 4, tactical empathy. I alluded to this earlier, how I would feel the same way if I were you, or if you were raised the way they were raised, or if you went through what they would do. And that's true. So, but you're not always going to have empathy for people. Empathy is a buzzword the last 5 years you hear a lot. It does not mean that you agree with the other side. It does not mean that. It just means that you understand the other side. I can understand people without agreeing with them, can I? And if you can't, that's your problem. You should be able to understand people's perspective. You don't have to agree with it. Like I said, you can let them have their own. Two things can be true at the same time. They can have their opinion, you can have yours. And sometimes we don't even know who's right all the time. So tactical empathy was coined by my favorite negotiator. If you want to read any books that I talk about up here, Chris Voss is probably the best. If you don't want to take notes, then you can email me after this. I have a white paper I can just flip to you. I don't give it out because I don't want the plaintiff's bars thinking that I'm God's gift to negotiations or something. So I don't want them getting my playbook, but I will email it to you. Chris Voss is great. He's the FBI hostage negotiator. He kind of coined this phrase. And what it means for this specific mission, for this specific incident, for this specific bank robbery, or whatever he's handling, he's going to develop tactical empathy. As a tactic, he's going to develop rapport and empathy with the person he's talking to, his counterpart that he's negotiating with. And that's an important thing that we can hold. We don't have to get absorbed and lost in the sea of someone else's emotions, but we can parachute in with tactical empathy, and that helps. And you saw this happen when Ken Feinberg had to give away the money that Congress allowed the victims' families of 9/11 to get. So if you died in 9/11, your family got, let's say it's $200,000. Congress set this amount through the Victims' Compensation Fund. So think about this. This negotiation, to get someone to sign the release and receive the money, it was not about money. The money was already set. Yet it was so hard, he wrote a whole book on this, going into living rooms of people and getting them to sign that document. Because it made them feel like they were saying, their son or daughter or husband or wife was worth X. Or some of it was the last thing they got to do for that person that died. So it's very emotional. So it was not about the money, it was about tactical empathy. And that's how you get deals done. You have to understand, you have to sit and cry in the living room, figuratively. You have to meet them on their emotional level. Charles Duhigg wrote a book called Super Communicators. Don't have time to cover it, but he's basically matching the level of communication that your person's on. If I emailed this lawyer in Texas last week asking for medical records for the third time, he's not giving me, and he says, sorry, I just had open heart surgery, I'm really struggling. I can't say, well, too bad, give me the records. I mean, that'd be, right? I have to say, oh, I'm so sorry. My mom went through that. I know how hard it is. Let me know how I can be praying for you. He went to level 3. Level 1 is facts and information. Level 2 is how you feel about things. Level 3 is your place and sense of purpose in the world. So when they opens up to level, a good negotiator, a good communicator, or what Charles Duhigg calls a super communicator, can go like a ninja between all 3 levels in any given conversation. Okay? So you just want to match the person, the level they're on, and keep mirroring that back and forth. Here's the last principle, and then I'll get into the tactics, and you'll get your money's worth today. Okay. Changing choice circle. I told you I love steak. If I was staying around tonight, I would invite you to dinner, and I would invite you to either a steakhouse or hibachi, because either one of them has steak, and I like steak. So you think you're choosing, but really, either one you choose is good for me. I didn't throw Olive Garden in there, right? So changing choice circumstances is another way to pull a lever to negotiate without negotiating. We do this with jury verdict forms. Can you assign a portion of fault to the mattress in the road? Can you assign, I'm always trying to play and see what the other side will let me get away with. Would the judge let me do this? Because if I can split the fault 4 ways instead of 2, mathematically I'm already winning, before we even start negotiating. So even, high school kids understand this. Everything's about Instagram. So when they do a promposal, they call it, they want something to take a picture of. So this kid asked Sarah to prom, hey, I have a crush on you. Will you go to prom with me? Circle your answer yes or definitely yes. I love that. My kind of guy. But she still found a way to outsmart him. Look, she circled the no in that's great. It's cold. It's cold. But I like it though. She wouldn't be pigeonholed, right? So both of them understood choice circumstances. And you don't have to fall for choice circumstances either, Retailers know this. They price what they want to sell in the middle. You go to in the South, in Alabama, we have Piggly Wiggly grocery stores. I don't know what y'all have up here, right? So they have like the real cheap, like paper thin toilet paper. You're like, I'm not homeless. I don't have to go for that right now. Then they have like the ultra bougie, like 8-ply lotion that costs $40. You're like, I'm not old money. I can't go there either, Then right in the middle, they have the $8, 3-ply standard Charmin that have the highest profit margin on. They put those 2 anchors there to sell you the middle, right? And that's what we want to do about choice circumstances. If you want to do a deep dive on this, there's a book called Nudge. It's interesting. This is really about choice circumstances, though. They call it decision architecture. If you've ever ridden on the highway, you hear the brrrr, the little rumble strip. You can ride on the brrrr if you want to. It just nudges you back on the highway, right? Or my favorite example out of this book was there's this airport in Europe, and the men's restroom had tons of spillage. The guys were just missing the urinal. If you've ever lived with a male, this is just a struggle, right? So what they did, guys, you've seen this, instead of just having the urinal on the floor, they introduced a different choice, and they etched a bumblebee inside the urinal. You've seen those like at the Whole Foods, like a lot of those waterless urinals. Sometimes it's a clamshell. Y'all seen those? So now, instead of just having the floor or the urinal, which was not enough for the male species, they had the clamshell or the bumblebee, and then the floor, and spillage went down by 80%. Not by putting up, they started saving all their money back on janitorial services by reducing aim small, miss small, right? So, my favorite nudge is this one in England where they had people throwing cigarettes on the ground, and instead they said you could vote for your favorite soccer player, Messi or Ronaldo, and they wouldn't even finish their last drag. They vote, and go vote, and there was not a cigarette butt to be found anywhere. All right, so let's get into the tactics now. Let me give you some timeless principles of how to win friends and influence people, okay? And the reason this works so well, gosh, if you can't remember anything else I say today, let me tell you this. Every person, unless they're a sociopath or a narcissist, which people throw those terms around, that's like 1% of the population. They're extreme outliers. So just assume that everyone you're dealing with is normal, on the spectrum of normal. Every normal person has a huge fear of being rejected or being made felt small or not included. So you want to avoid that. I teach my kids this all the time. Don't make someone feel ugly or stupid. They'll hate you. That is such a hot button in people. You never want to make people feel that way. So avoid that. And everyone has this core need of being loved and accepted. So you always want to cater towards that. I've learned this with my wife. We've been married 22 years. And on spring break, snow was terrible this year if you went out west. We were in Steamboat, which I grew up going to. I knew that mountain. So I'm leading us down this path, the whole family, and they're not as really great skiers, but they're there for it, And they did not have any signs up. They had literally closed some paths like an hour before without putting signs up. The only way down is a black diamond called Rolex if you've been to Steamboat. And I'm like, my two kids, like my daughter and son who are decent skiers, had already started off down the mountain. They're tumbling. And my wife gets there. She's like, I'm not going. And I'm starting to get antsy. I'm like, let's just get started. Even if you go on your bottom, you have to go. And it was the worst approach. I should have said, she ended up calling ski patrol. She didn't care. I was the only one stressed. But my point is, that hurt her feelings because the moment she needed me to be there, right, I'm sitting here being Mr. Intense, drill sergeant. Didn't help. And that's just my personality. It's one of my weaknesses. But so she was still kind of icy about it the next day, and I don't blame her. And I know this is recorded, so you're right, honey. I love you. But in the condo the next morning, I could tell she was still icy. But I've learned this, that instead of getting defensive and letting the fight become about the fight, I said, hey, before we even talk about this, I want you to know that I want to be connected with you. And if the kids weren't here, if we don't go skiing, just being here at the condo is enough. Because I want to, and I meant it, because I wanted to hit that macro level need of hers. She felt abandoned on the mountain. I want to come back and say, listen, I want to be connected. Now she understands that I can just tell her soften. It brought air in the room. I say, now about my specific behavior on that mountain made things worse. I'm sorry. I didn't dial back my intensity. I could have let things play out. Instead, I try to control things because of my fear, and I'm sorry. But by laying the groundwork, you don't have to be like some genius to do this. Just avoid rejection, move towards love and acceptance, and communicate that. And it really softens things up for good negotiations. And I meant every word of that, honey. So, okay. So this is what I'm going to tell you what not to do, keeping those two things in mind. I'm going to give you a list of what not to do in negotiations, then I'll give you a list of what to do. All right, here's the first thing. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Again, that's the first thing that spikes people up past 96 beats per minute because it hits that fear button of being rejected or felt little or controlled. People hate it. So you don't want to say, that's nonsensical, or I got your unreasonable offer. I mean, you're rejecting them as a person. I mean, don't make it personal. Anyway, it's just not the way to go. Don't argue. I've already covered this once, but let me tell you again. Let me give this to you differently. A good car salesman would never argue with you. Sir, what kind of car do you drive? If you mind me asking. Eric? Dodge Journey. Okay. So if he takes his Dodge up to a Chevrolet dealership, the Chevrolet salesman is not going to say, what are you doing driving a Dodge? They're not on the same level as Chevrolets. That insults his dad may have driven a Dodge. You don't want to further entrench him. So a good salesman is going to say, oh, Dodge are great vehicles. They're sold by great people. You can't go wrong driving a Dodge. But have you seen the technology we have in these here? Grab the keys. I'm going to ride shotgun. Come hop in. Let's go. What did he do? He closed the loop on the Dodge. We're not debating the Dodge. No, I'm going to pivot to what I want to sell. And by doing that, if I have to agree with you, that's fine. I just want to pivot here. That's why you don't argue with people. Because if you keep doing that, they're going to keep getting louder and louder, and then the fight becomes about the fight. That's not what you want to do. You know where you want to go. Remember, negotiation is communication with a purpose. So we know where we want to go. We got to be willing to take some lumps to get there, even some insults. I don't care if people insult me. My identity's not in that. I don't care if they think I don't care if I have to take 2 steps back to get 4 steps forward eventually. I will do it. I'm flexible. I want to win, so I'm willing to take that. And some people just get so locked in, and they're not willing to do these things. So another thing you don't want to do, you don't want to be fake or insincere. This is not about playing a part. People can smell if you're not authentic or not. They can sense it if you're not authentic, or if you're trying to control them or be some kind of puppet master. That's not what this is about. Tactical empathy keeps you from doing that, actually. And don't get rattled, number 4, because we're all human too. And we know that's our sense of loss aversion gets triggered. If you're trying to get a big deal closed, or maybe you're trying to buy a house, and you know that if you don't get it right now in this market, you're going to lose it just like you lost the last 2. It's better to have no deal than a bad deal. I tell my clients that all the time. It's better just not get that house and overpay for it. It becomes a prison if you can't afford it. So don't get rattled. There's some books on this. William Ury wrote the book, Getting the Yes with Yourself. That's a really good book if you want to talk about create some objectivity, not letting yourself get sabotaged. But I just noticed, even if you wear like a Fitbit or some kind of watch, if your heart rate's up in a moment, don't make any decisions right then. Because you don't want your nervous system overriding what's logical. That's why you speak so harshly when you're angry. You want to let all that settle and wait to non-conflict times to actually talk about important things. And lastly, don't offer to meet in the middle. That's what bad negotiators do, and I'm going to show you a better way. Okay, so now let me tell you, if you've read any of these books, they all kind of have some good principles in them. I'm going to kind of give you my favorite takeaways from all of them. So a lot of this is leaned heavily on Chris Voss's book that I showed you earlier. Never Split the Difference. So here's what to do. Number one is mirroring. Again, if the number one rule in negotiations is to keep the other side talking, we want to just mirror what they just said back to us. That is the opposite of not listening. That is very much listening. That's active listening. So you can mirror. Obviously, you can mirror with your body language. You know, if you're open, I'm going to be open too. I want you to keep going. Or if you're closed, I may try to counter. If my wife is angry with me, she might be like this, high-pitched voice, beady eyes, you know. That's how people act when they're angry, right? Or in Alabama, she might be like this, you know. But so I want to counter that. I want to be open, soft. I want to use what Chris Voss calls his late-night DJ radio voice. That's how you calm a baby, isn't it? You hold a baby, it's going to be all right. You can calm 45-year-old men that way too. Hey, guys, we're just going to take it down a notch. And so your voice, your tone, all that is about mirroring. You have mirroring neurons in your brain. That's why when I yawn or smile, you do the same. Our brains are wired that way, so we want to tap into that reality of psychology to use that in our favor. The other way you can mirror is just by simply mirroring the words they just said. Just kind of repackage it back to them. What I hear you saying is this. It sounds like, it looks like, it feels like, it seems like. Those are all great things to say back to people. It seems like you're saying that when I come home past 7, you feel like I'm putting work ahead of you and the kids. See, if I label correctly, that's the second thing. Labeling, that is like so powerful, right? Because, I could say, well, I'm the only one that works. What do you want me to do? I can't control traffic. I had a case blow up today. I could get defensive. Okay, here's how I know if I've labeled incorrectly. My wife will say, you're right. Right? That's what you say to get people off your back. You're not getting the goodwill. You know, they're saying, you're right. You're too difficult to deal with, so you're right. That's what I do to people. You're right. That's fine. You can be wrong if you want to. I'll say you're right if that's what you want. So instead, if you label correctly, they say, that's right. It's like I take it, instead of me versus you, it's my arm around you. We're watching on this movie screen together. What I hear you saying is this. It seems like, well, it looks like, and they'll say, that's right. Now, all of a sudden, you're on the same page. It's not you versus them. And so that's why mirroring and labeling is so powerful to get people to negotiate. All right, number 3 is you've got to ask questions. And even when I'm negotiating, you can't really, you have to be bold enough to ask for a better deal on stuff. So it's not, I'm raised in the South. I had good manners like beat into me, not literally, but it was just like so emphasized that it almost had overcome people pleasing, right? I had to say, well, listen, here's a great question. Is this the best you can do? You know, I like to create straw men, so it's not you versus me. I'm saying, listen, I'd love to. My client just can't get there. Or, hey, I'd love to. My wife's saying I can't get this new roof because it's too expensive. What's the best you can do? I want to work on her. It's you and me trying to please my wife now. You know what I'm saying? Or, hey, I'd love to settle with you. It's just I got this crazy client, or I got the crazy judge, or you don't know what the crazy jury is going to do. And it doesn't matter who the straw man is. The straw man is going to unite you and me. And so that's being counterpart, man, we're together. Do that with the kids. You know, hey, it's the McKenzies versus the world. Listen, I know you might not like us right now, but listen, out there is a lot worse. All of a sudden, we're uniting. So it's a great way to do it. You got to ask questions. Can you help me understand? Here's a great takeaway. I had to learn this one the hard way. Here's a principle. It's called seek understanding before rushing to judgment. So most of us who walk into a room, why is this that way? Why did you write this brief that way? What's going on? Again, you're criticizing, condemning, and complaining. Nobody wants to work for someone like that. I started my own firm 19 months ago. I've had to learn that I carry weight just because my name's on the door now. We're not all buddies, so I got to be careful. I got to be careful as a dad, the weight I bring. And I have to be even. It's just anyway. For better or for worse, it's going to be it's going to be more impact. So what I want to do, instead of just rushing to judgment, I want to say, can you help me understand kind of what's going on with this one, this file? Hey, can you help me understand why your toys are all over the garage? Oh, Mom told us to donate them to an orphanage. Oh, good. I'm glad I asked. I don't feel like a jerk now, you know. So if you just come in and be like, why is this that way? It's like you know everything. And I found humbly, like I'm probably wrong 70% of the time in my assumptions. Like it's way over 50% I'm wrong. So if I can just ask first and be curious instead of judgmental, I don't look so stupid, and I don't feel so guilty, and I don't hurt so many people. Okay, use leverage and momentum is number 4. Now you can always sense when leverage and momentum are present. Some things are unexplainable, but they're undeniable, right? You can sense it in a sports game, right? When you get a turnover on defense, you know the offensive coordinator is about to take a shot downfield because momentum. Well, we may not be able to quantify momentum. I mean, I've actually read a book on momentum. You can quantify it. It's a formula, but we'll talk about that at a different talk. But you want to once you sense the momentum, that's when you want to make your best move. That's when I start pressuring people. You know, once I feel like in poker they call it having the table on tilt. People kind of just reacting to everything you're doing. That's when I know I got them, and that's when I'm going to start being a little more aggressive. I might just change my tone a little bit, you know, or like a lot of times as a lawyer, I played the all shucks good old boy, you know, from Alabama. I got cases across the country. I'm like, I don't really do y'all's law up here. How does it work now? Tell me that. Then I come in at the deposition. I'm like, no, that's not what you said. Now, no, we're on the record. I want you to say that again, and you're under oath. You see me getting hot. You see my voice. You say that. Turn that on like that, you'd be surprised. Now all of a sudden, it's just they've been seeing nice William. Then you see me getting hot all of a sudden. That hot cognition, it is powerful when we have momentum. So you just have to be able to turn it on. My kids know that I love them more than anybody, but I have an edge. I'm an intense little guy, and I have to watch it, you know. But if people don't know, you have to show your edge sometimes, and you have to know when to show it. If you show it all the time, it's like crying wolf. I remember my dad was a really good man. If he hardly ever reached his edge. If you ever saw it, you didn't want to see it again. Not that he'd go nuts, but my point, you respected it. He was a judge, so he carried weight too. So there's something about that, using leverage and momentum. If you were trying to buy my house and you found out that my wife was 9 months pregnant and I've already bought another house, I mean, you can lowball me, right? Because that's the benefit of mirroring, labeling, and asking questions. You learn. The other side is just showing you cards. You're keeping the other side talking. Now, all of a sudden, you know when to make your move with leverage and momentum. Okay. Then you want to offer an extreme anchor. That's the low ball, but it is powerful psychologically. If you do what I do, like a lot of litigation work, the plaintiff's lawyers always open up with a $1 million, $10 million demand, depending on the case. Even though sometimes they're willing to settle for $100,000, they always want to anchor you up. Because here's why it works. Like if I wanted to buy your car, Kelley Blue Book may say it's worth $40,000. And I come in and I say, hey, man, I'll offer you $35,000. But, man, why would I take a $5,000 haircut? Kelley Blue Book says it's $40,000, man. Well, then I email you back 10 days later and say, hey, listen, I've kind of sharpened my pencil a little bit. I can give you $37,200. Now, I don't seem so crazy because I've been this reality a little bit. Now, imagine this. Imagine if I'm renting a house from you and you go up on rent. You've gone up from $1,500 a month to $1,750. I may email you and say, hey, Jacob, remember that, man, we've never even so much as put a picture hole in the wall. You hadn't had to touch my deposit. I pay on time every month. And my wife and I have crunched the numbers. We really want to stay here. But the most we can afford based on our budget and everything else that I've tried to move around is $16,342.55. And you're thinking, I don't want to argue with this math professor here. Oh, my God, yeah, okay, that's fine. You can stay for that, Instead, when I offer that specific number, instead of just some round number, we can afford $1,600. That sounds like I'm just starting negotiations. Instead, I quantify it very specific. It makes it much more sticky as a number, right? So I want to get very specific, and I want to be polite as I deliver it. It's like giving your dog medicine covered in dog food. I always want to do that with people. Super nice, super charming, charismatic. I do care about you and your family, but man, I got a job to do. So come on, help me out, man. You see how we are? So you have to be willing to offer that extreme anchor. It's not impolite. It's just good negotiating. And then I'm not going to cover this right now, the 65-20-10 rule. It's pretty specific. If you do what I do for a living and you deal with number negotiations, I got it in a white paper I can give to you, but it's interesting. Let me show you one more thing, and then I'll take some questions if y'all want. So there was this issue with these Mexican cartels kidnapping people down in Mexico. And Chris Voss, who wrote Never Split the Difference, I heard him on a podcast talking about this. They would get him to go down. He was such a good negotiator. And you really ought to see him. He's just a normal dude. He beat all these Harvard MBA students in negotiations, and he just has no really formal education. If you fly Delta, and he has like 8 vignettes on negotiating, and I think it's coming out with a new series too on TV, but it's just fascinating how he's such a master at it. He's just a normal looking guy. But he would go to these cartels. Number one, he'd find out that they want to go party on the weekend, so he could always get a better deal on Friday, right? So it sounds sad that Aunt Maria was sitting there kidnapped by a cartel, and he wouldn't really talk to him seriously till Friday, but my thing is you have to be somewhat objective on these things. You can't be too much emotional. But let's say the typical scenario would be like this. The kidnappers wanted $5,000, and all the family could afford was $2,000. Let's use round numbers. So what he would find is that if he would just keep repeating that $2,000, they're like, no, we want $5,000 or we'll kill her right now. He'd say, well, I need proof of life. How do we even know she's still alive? And they would show proof of life without him even having to go up any more money. That's a huge concession in life or death negotiations to get proof of life or something. He would just ask questions. How do I know she's still alive? How am I supposed to do that? And he would just keep it going without offering any more money. And then finally, he would repeat that $2,000, same offer again on Friday afternoon, and say, you know what? We're out of money. We can throw in a radio. And that radio is what, $10? Costs nothing. It's a token. So the reason it worked, it anchors and adds finality and seriousness to your final number. So instead of just throwing more money at it, okay, here's another $3,000. I started to say, I can throw in a spa package for grandmama because I know this has been really stressful for her. I can pay for the cost of mediation. Hey, that's all we got to do. We can set up a scholarship for the kid that died. So every fall we can get his name announced at the high school football game, and there's a scholarship for the next couple. It's sad, but his legacy can live on like that. That only costs about $25,000 to do an endowment scholarship, I found out. And again, it's just a way to negotiate. If you're at policy limits, there's no more money. How do you get this case settled if they won't take it? You have to come up with these tokens. So tokens are a great way to almost repeat your last offer without offering any more money. So it's nominal, but it's effective psychologically. Let me close with this, is that I didn't come up with any of this stuff. I just kind of put this together, having a very type A personality. I was 99th percentile in lack of patience and competitiveness. I had to find a way to solve it. I had to find a way to not be psycho, right? And care about people better. So this presentation I just gave you was kind of like my journey over the last kind of 8 years of kind of how I've become better and just not being a bulldog. And what I found is Benjamin Franklin kind of came to the same conclusion. You want to get your opponent's goodwill, not just the victory. And it's crazy how small the world is. I was here 2 years ago at ISU speaking. I never thought I'd be back here. I love being back here. I got the invitation to come back. So my point is, how I treat people everywhere I go is crazy how small the world is. And the same thing with the people you're negotiating with. You'll probably end up negotiating with them again. If you do it the right way, you can get a good deal and still get their goodwill, so you're set up better for the next time. It becomes this perpetual compounding ecosystem of negotiation. Then those good results get you more chances to negotiate, and you grow your networks. It's amazing how this one skill of developing your EQ is probably your most important skill that you can do professionally. Because all of life is negotiations, and you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And life is more like a game of chess. Most people are playing checkers. They go tit for tat. You move 500, I'll move 500. You send me a passive-aggressive text message, I'll send you one back. Not me. I'll send a heart emoji. Hey, I got you. I understand how you feel. I got you. I hear you. Because I'm trying to win. I want a good relationship. I want to be connected. I'm not trying to win the little pissy argument contest on text message. I don't care about that. So instead of playing checkers, going tit for tat, move for move, think of yourself as playing chess. And then if you do that, you're going to find not only do you get your opponent's goodwill, you're going to get better results for yourself as well. And that's why you need to stop arguing and start negotiating. Thank you. Okay, any questions? We have about 3 minutes. We go in 5 minutes? You in at 12? Okay, so. Anybody have a thirst for knowledge out there? Yes, please.
trial work, how do you find this applied in that role?
Yeah. So Sun Tzu says, if you want peace, prepare for war, right? So the fact that I'm known as a national trial lawyer allows me to actually come in and get better negotiations. That makes sense? So it's not one or the other. People don't see me as a guy that likes to settle cases. They see me as a guy who, I always say, I make more money if I try cases because I get paid by the hour. But we can work a deal out. So that's how it works. They both work together like two twin railroad tracks. That make sense? Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
But it's your sixth point, it was up on the slide for just a moment, and it was like 65 something.
Yeah.
What was?
Okay, he's asking about the 65-20-10 rule. So I teased you with that, didn't give it to you. I like that. See, I want my audience to always be begging for it, you know? So, notice I didn't start off saying I'm William McKenzie. I started my own firm. I went to the XYZ law school. Who cares? I want to start off with, I say, hey, this is going to affect how you parent. This is going to be something for you. Yeah, I wanted to hook you early, right? And I use a lot of, when I see y'all zoning out, getting your phones, it doesn't hurt my feelings. But I know that's time to tell a story. Because when I start telling a story, everybody comes up, I get them in hot cognition, right? So I left that hanging on purpose, hoping someone would follow up, because I don't care if you do or not, I already know it. So the idea is, if you have $100,000, you go ahead and offer the $65,000 up front, 65%, 65-20-10. Then you add another 20%. So your next move, no matter what the other side does, is another $20,000. So you're at 85 now. And then it just gives the sense to the other side that you're getting squeezed the whole time. 65, 20, then you add your additional 10, which would be 95,000 total. And the idea is that no matter what they do, that's what we're doing. Take it or leave it. We're going in 3 steps. You tell them on the front, I prime them on the front end. We're only going to make 3 moves today, so you guys better make hay while the sun shines. And I'm not offering 95. I'm offering 94, 743. You know, so that's the 65-20-10 rule. Who else? Yes, sir. Yeah, art of war.
You mentioned the idea that he suggested you've always got to give your enemy a golden, what'd you call it, a golden bridge
A
to
golden
retreat
bridge
on?
to retreat on, yeah.
Is that a hard thing to do? Is that a hard thing a skill to build?
It is a skill to build. So the question is, how do we find the golden bridge that our counterpart can retreat on? You have to care enough to understand what's important to them, right? And what they're trying to protect. And so pride is always the one thing every human, we said, every human, unless they're a sociopath, has that. They want to feel belonged and smart. So you always want to preserve that. And so I do that by attacking their position, not the person. I even say, hey, your client's being crazy here. I don't say you're being crazy, you know. I say, hey, you know, some of the cases you cited I think have been overturned, man, so I don't know. We're not really giving a lot of weight to them. I'm saying it real gently. But the golden bridge also may just be the fact that we leave them enough room to be wrong. It's kind of what I meant by that. Anybody else think of a better example than that of a golden bridge to retreat on? I'm talking about my son, allowing him to make the right decision. Yeah, that's about it. And allow them an off-ramp too, especially before a trial. You know, I come at it, at the end of the day, this is a good example of just kind of pivoting. The plaintiff's lawyer wants to talk about the case, their client. I say, well, I want to come around that and talk to you about you. Hey, we're just businessman to businessman right now. We both have our own firms. I know that this is an economical decision for you too. So I want to pivot away from what his client and what their legal position is and say, hey, I can give you a bird in the hand right now. You know, I mean, hey brother, this is lake house money. If you play your cards right, you'll be on a jet ski in 6 weeks. You know, I'm getting hot cognition with him, getting him away from the whole legal analysis, over here trying to think about him being in a lake house. That's powerful. So that's a bridge he wants to take too, is an off-ramp to litigation by getting him, you know, thinking about, man, this is real money here. And so when you quantify it, not just by the amount, but by what it buys, that's another powerful way to get them to understand. So I can keep going about this stuff. I geek out on this stuff forever, but anybody else? We've got about a minute or two. No, we're out of time. Yes, ma'am, one more.
Do these work with families too?
Yeah, I think so. I would say this, and here's my measure. Am I getting better at life? You know, is there fruit? Not just what I think. Is there objective fruit? Is my marriage getting better? Are my kids gravitating towards me? You know? So yes, it does. Because this is really about, I've pitched it to you as a point of self-interest. This is really about putting other people ahead of yourself, though, is what it's really about. This is really about being a servant leader and not coming into the rooms and trying to own it. I have not told you that. I've not told you to be a Don Draper or some alpha male. I've not said that. I said, come in, show deference. Come in, see what they need, and let's appeal to them. And I feel like servant leadership and coming to people like that is always going to produce that kind of fruit you're looking for. So, all right. Leave me a 5-star review on Google then. Okay, I'm kidding. Thank you, brother.